Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Eurofuel technical webinar focused on HVO. I'm Federica Miano. I'm Eurofuel Secretary General, and it's wonderful to see a lot of participants today joining us from across Europe and beyond, including Eurofuel members, industry stakeholders, and technical experts. Now, I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce Eurofuel and explain what we do. Eurofuel is the European association representing the liquid heating fuel sector. Our members include national associations and companies from across Europe and the United States, all working together to ensure that residential heating remains reliable, efficient, and increasingly low carbon. Next slide, please. Our mission is actually to support the transition to renewable and low carbon heating solutions in homes while safeguarding consumer choice and energy security. In today's context, this mission has become even more critical. In fact, as we know, the current geopolitical situation, including ongoing energy market volatility and supply uncertainties, has clearly demonstrated the importance of reducing dependence on imported fossil fuels and diversifying the energy sources. This is why actually exploring and scaling up alternatives such as renewable liquid fuels is not only a climate priority, but also a strategic necessity for Europe's energy resilience. Of course, we promote, as Eurofuel, technology-neutral approach, technology-neutral policies, and we work closely with policymakers and industry stakeholders to find practical pathways for decarbonizing residential heating. Of course, we support the use of modern and efficient heating systems, and we promote renewable liquid fuels like HVO, FAME, that can be used in existing technologies with minimal disruption. Next slide, please. Eurofuel also provides technical guidance, best practices, and information resources to help installers, distributors, and policymakers implement renewable heating solutions safely and effectively in residential buildings. Some of our key activities include organizing technical webinars like this one, producing guidance documents and information sheets on renewable fuels and heating system performance, facilitating collaboration across industry, policymakers, and research institutions. So with that introduction, let me briefly outline today's program. We will start with an overview of renewable liquid fuels in the heating sector, including HVO and FAME, presented by our Eurofuel president, Dr. Moritz Bellingen. Then Teemu Sarjovara from Neste will share insights from the producers, followed by Erika Furin from Ariston, who will focus on technical deployment and appliance compatibility. After that, Martin Reichard from EVO will discuss field tests and market dynamics in Austria, and Harto Hannula from LEI will provide the Finnish perspective. This webinar will provide participants with a comparative, I would say, view of HVO deployment in these markets, situating it within the broader context of renewable fuels. Finally, we will provide a brief wrap-up, and we will open the floor to questions. With that in mind, let's begin our first presentation, which will be delivered by Dr. Moritz Bellingen, Head of Heating Market at EN2X and Eurofuel President. Moritz, could you give us an overview of the current market for renewable liquid fuels for heating? The floor is yours.
Of course. Thank you, Federica and Sabrina, for the nice introduction. And a warm welcome to all guests in our technical webinar. Unfortunately, we are fighting an energy shortage today, but however, this is not the focus of this workshop today, but we are focusing on that issue in another webinar. But what we can see that renewable fuels, renewable sources reduces dependence on fossil fuels and will help to overcome these problems in future. Next slide, please. How do we prepare for future? I think this is a difficult and most important question, and I would like to give you a few answers from Eurofuel side, from the liquid energy carriers. What you see here is the energy policy triangle, and you find the goals on each edge: sustainability, affordability, security of supply. Ideally, all these goals should be achieved simultaneously, but that is often not possible. In practice, this leads to conflicts. But an open approach to technology leads to greater resilience, and renewable fuels will help to improve security of supply. Next slide, please. Why do we use liquid fuels at all? We have a few arguments listed below. It's reliability. So the oil heating system is suitable for all building types, old, new ones, high energy or low energy output needed for heating, well insulated, less insulated. So oil heating system can cope with all these buildings. It's flexibility. You don't need any grids. This is often important if you live in rural areas. And it combines very well with renewable energies. For example, solar thermal, PV, but also in hybrid heating systems, it easily can be connected to a small heat pump. And at last but not least, it's affordability. Heating system modernization does not require immediate adjustments to the building envelope. You can do it step by step. So the money you will need for the first step is not as big as in comparable solutions. Probably you have seen this already. This is our future vision, how we think we will reach a carbon neutral future. First step is efficiency. This can be achieved by a new heating system, a high efficient condensing oil boiler, or insulating the building envelope, or new windows. All count the same. Second step will be introducing of renewables, hybrid, as already explained. And now we are discussing the third step, carbon neutral fuels. You already reduced your energy demand drastically. And now this last step is introducing the fuels, probably as mixtures first, and then becoming more and more renewable when you will have 100% mixture. Next slide, please. This is the fuels we are thinking about. It's esterified fuels, and you may remember our last technical webinar, we focused on these fuels. Today, we would like to focus on paraffinic fuels, HVO, for example, produced from waste or renewable feedstocks, or totally fully synthetic. Then it will be produced with renewable hydrogen and carbon. Both will lead to paraffinic fuels, which are a perfect feedstock or a perfect fuel for oil heating systems. Next slide, please. We carried out a lot of field tests in Europe already. More than 300 field installations were evaluated and the results were collected. And these field trials were done with different fuels and mixtures up to 100% renewable fuels, depending on the regulation in each country. In these fuel tests, we didn't find any fuel-specific problem, and we could summarize that heaters and components were approved for operation. Next slide, please. So this is, from our point of view, how to prepare for future. Coming from fossil fuels step by step, first in mixtures, then in 100% pure components, to a future. And what we are doing is reducing CO2 emissions drastically. Thank you for this moment. We will see us again at the end, but I would now like to pass over to the next speaker, which is Teemu.
Thank you very much, Moritz. And so now it's the turn of Teemu Sarjovara, Head of Product Management at Neste, who will share some insights for the global fuel market. Teemu, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, and great to be here today. So let's jump right to the next slide and use the time, 10 minutes, as valuable as possible. But few words about Neste. We have background as a traditional oil refining company, and we are still having fossil oil refining activities also, but the main focus has been more or less for 20 years in renewables, especially in renewable diesel and also SAF more and more every year nowadays. So basically we have production sites in Finland, of course, then in Singapore, Rotterdam, and nowadays also in California. But let's go forward. We are still, I would say, the market leader. There has a lot of new capacity coming every year throughout, especially, let's say, 5-6 years now. And we are also in the middle of Rotterdam expansion project. In rather sharply 1 year, it should be finalized. And after that, our total capacity for renewable products should be 6.8 million metric tons there. And currently we are using waste and residue as 90% of our material inputs or feedstocks in our refineries. But let's go to the next slide 10 and jump for the next directly. So how we see that how the renewable diesel market is growing. Our forecast is that it will be steady growth of roughly 11% annually still through the next decade or so. Drivers there are the mandates. So we see that this kind of voluntary-based market is growing year by year. There are more companies and customers who are willing to use these kind of products voluntary basis, but the main driver is the regulation, and that will remain, I would say, for the visible future also, that the driver behind the new investment and new capacity will be regulation. And of course, I would say EU and California are the main markets, main drivers, but there are also other markets like UK, Canada, Brazil, who are developing on this front, but clearly the main markets are in Europe and in California. Let's go for the next slide. And if we look, how does it look in when compared to the whole global road transport or aviation fuel demand, we can see here that if a few years ago the production was around for the renewable diesel, which is more or less a technical product, same as renewable heating oil, was roughly 15 million tons. So we can say that in 10 years, it will be triple. That's the forecast at the moment. So of course, there is some uncertainties that how the projects are ongoing, but the investment pipelines are rather long. So already if you want to be there on the markets 2030, you should have already more or less investment announcements and projects ongoing. Otherwise, you will miss. So in certain way, that's rather reliable number. I would say that roughly 45-50 million tons by 2030. And overall biofuels, when you take into account ethanol and FAME biodiesel, it's 200 or so by 2035. But at the same time, we can see that the overall market is significantly bigger. So there is still room to grow for sure. There is no challenges on that there wouldn't be room on the markets there. And same also on the aviation side, that it's a hot topic for us and everybody in the business, sustainable aviation fuel, but we are still taking certain way baby steps, although that industry, we are starting to have industrial side production for the SAF product, but still long way to go, I would say still. Let's go for the next slide. And there's some animation, so let's click one more time, please. So what is needed to reach higher volumes? It's a regulation that needs to be solid and foreseeable. And IEA has done an analysis that already today, that if we look at what are the stated, let's say, pledges that governments have done across the globe, and if you look really the regulation that has been set, we have significant gap there. So on the regulation front line, if we really want to reach the climate goals and enable related investments, more government level and of course Brussels level decisions must be made. And also in a way that industry will trust them, because of course, as mentioned, the lifespan of the investments is several years and payback time is even longer. So you really have to trust for the markets to make such an investment. And the tricky part there is that basically there is no regulation in any main markets beyond 2030. So that is one, let's say, bit peculiar thing, that if you start thinking how close 2030 already is, that now in EU we are just starting to discuss about regulation, and we know that how fast Brussels regulations cycles are. So I would say that we start to be in hurry to set the clear roadmap beyond 2030. And I think we can click for the next ones. So basically, as a conclusion here, more actions are needed, especially the regulation side. That is the key factor, that how much investments there will be. And also clearly state that at the moment, limitation is not the feedstock. It's the market demand, and that market demand mainly is still today and upcoming years coming from the regulation. So bottleneck is not the feedstock, it's the regulation at the moment. And I think we can jump for the next one. And that was my last slide. So thanks for the attention.
Thank you very much, Teemu. That was brilliant. Now let me turn over to our next speaker, Erika Furin, OEM and UK Subsidiaries Director at Ariston Combustion Technologies Division. Erika, can you give us an overview of the technological deployment and appliance compatibility around the use of HVO? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Federica. Thank you all. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this webinar today. My name is Erika, and I am representing the Combustion Technology Division, Burner Division at Ariston Group. Today, I am going to share our experience with the HVO, highlighting some information about some key markets we have in Europe, and discussing a few technical aspects related to the residential heating sector and the domestic burners. In this slide, it's just a summary confirming what we all should know very well. Across Europe, much more than 20 million houses are still relying on liquid fuel for heating. Most of these houses are located, we know, in rural and off-grid area, where other heating options are not available. In many cases, there is no access to gas grid, and for this reason, liquid fuels remain the only viable and realistic solution. In addition, we may have also matter involving poor insulation or other technical limitation. These buildings are often not suitable for low temperature system unless major renovation work are done. For these houses, liquid fuel boilers are the unique viable technology that can be used immediately. They are reliable, affordable, and can be installed without any major change to the building. But there is a good news. We are also supporting very well the use of biofuel. We are strongly believing that biofuel can play a very important role for decarbonization of the heating sector. In Europe, some countries have already started using biofuels, including HVO, and carrying out different field tests. Later in this webinar, my colleagues Martin and Art will share their experience in Austria and Finland. For now on, I would like to focus on our own experience, so Ariston experience in some of our European key markets, where oil burner and boiler are still installed in large number every year. I am referring to France in particular, to UK and Ireland, and also to countries like Germany and Spain. During the last webinar, our colleague of Santec discussed about France. It is an important oil market where more than 3 million houses are heated by liquid fuel. Since 2022, France has applied a CO2 limit of 300 grams by kilowatt hour for domestic boiler. This means that new liquid fuel boilers are still possible to be installed, but if they are operating with renewable fuel, liquid fuel. Today, we know France is focusing on the so-called F30, made by 30% rapeseed oil. There is an ongoing field trial focusing on 55% and 100% rapeseed oil, so FAME. But also another important step is going to be implemented. There is an increasing interest in HVO. We are discussing with OEMs, we are discussing with industry, boiler manufacturers, external laboratory to start a field test based on HVO very soon in France. Moving to UK and Ireland, I would like to share these are also representing a key markets in Europe with more than 2 million homes heated with kerosene. These are key markets for Ariston, for us, for our company and organization. Let me say we are also very active and work closely with the OEM and association to promote the use of bio. Also, according to our experience, Germany, another very important market for oil, given the huge install base, and Spain are demonstrating an increasing interest in conducting tests with HVO, pure HVO, and also blend. For example, Germany and our German partner are asking more and more to have a reliable product running with 65% of HVO. Next slide, please. Our experience with HVO include a structured and systematic testing approach. We carry out laboratory tests, long duration endurance tests, and also field trials. We tested different fuels, so on top of FAME, HVO clearly is included, 100%, and so pure HVO and different blends with kerosene and gas oil. All the tests were performed in partnership with OEM, external laboratories. In France, for example, we are collaborating with CETIAT, distribution partners, and industry association. Understanding fuel properties is a key part of our work. Next slide, please. Here is just a simple table highlighting some of the fuels we tested in our laboratory, from the fossil fuel, gas oil, diesel, kerosene, to FAME, and then moving to HVO and HVO blends. There is a comparison of the different parameters. The main one we are considering and normally checking and monitoring involving burners. I am not going through all the numbers, but I would like to highlight some of the key aspects involving our product and appliances. Calorific value. Calorific value as for HVO is higher than other biofuels and very similar to fossil fuels, such as kerosene and gas oil. This means that from an energy point of view, HVO can deliver comparable heating performances without the large energy penalties typically associated with the first generation of biofuel. In terms of viscosity, HVO viscosity is similar to gas oil and much higher than kerosene. This is important for us, for burner manufacturer, allowing pump pressure, for example, and burner setting closer to the gas oil configuration, provided that the system is properly calibrated. And then moving to density, HVO has a lower density than both kerosene and gas oil. This means that for the same nozzle and flow rate, less fuel mass and therefore less energy is delivered. For this reason, nozzle selection and burner calibration should be reviewed to ensure the correct thermal input. Lubricity. This is a key aspect for us involving burner and key components like pump. Kerosene and especially gas oil are characterized by different lubricity. HVO is better. Lubricity, I don't know if you are familiar with this, let me say, aspect, is in a simple word, the ability of the fuel to reduce friction and wear between moving metal components in the fuel system. Even though HVO is a paraffinic fuel without aromatics, we are experiencing in our laboratory its lubricity is better than kerosene. Better lubricity means less wear on the pump and help the longer-term protection and the reliability of fuel system components. Next slide, please. In this chart, I am showing briefly our experience in UK and Ireland with what we call the light blue flame technology. We are referring to domestic heating, where the most popular power are below 35 kilowatt. You can see from the picture, this is a combustion head that is characterized by a blast tube and a recirculation pipe, able to achieve the NOx limit according to the eco design. When burning kerosene, the preheater is not necessary. Typically, it is used when using gas oil. Even with HVO, we can say preheater, given the characteristic of the fuel, is not necessary. And the flame sensor in this case are standard one based on photoresistance or photodiode technology. I am mentioning the matter of flame sensor because it's important to know that when burning HVO, the flame is typically cleaner and less luminous than the one generated by the combustion with kerosene and gas oil. This is because HVO is a very clean paraffinic fuel with no aromatics inside, and therefore, according to our experience, produce much less luminous soot during the combustion. As a result, some traditional flame sensor, especially those relying on flame brightness, may see a lower signal and may needed to be checked and adapted. No measure matter, but it's just a matter to monitor the flame detection and in case implements very few adaptation. I am comparing, let me say, the configuration of the burner when burning 20% of HVO blended with kerosene. In this case, we can see that according to the test done, no modification were necessary to be implemented into the burner. Also, the matter of nozzle size and settings were not relevant. So the burner, the standard and the original configuration could work with HVO blended with kerosene without any problem. Important about material to assure that the key components are biocompatible, especially the rubbers. We would prefer and we would suggest to have HNBR, Viton or Teflon. Also other material may be compatible. The combustion of the pure HVO also granted very reliable performances. No need to change, to implement a major change in the burner configuration. This is clearly depending on the starting point, the original solution, and the age of the burner and the boiler involved, but we can say that no major changes are required for burning 100% HVO. Here, with the pure HVO, we recommend that the matter of flame sensor are check and double check to assure there are no major issues involving the readiness of the flame. Next slide, please. Here, in a quick way, just a slide showing the combustion performances. We have two graphs showing combustion performances with the kerosene and HVO with the same combustion technology on a boiler with the burner input 23 kilowatts, so the typical size of the domestic heating sector. You can see that the graphs are putting in correlation CO2 with the percent with the NOx emission and CO emission and soot index. We can see that HVO is granting a very low soot index, so very similar to the kerosene performances. Also, CO emissions are well controlled on top of NOx that are below the current eco-design limit and also in line with the possible future lower limit. We are now speaking about the future ERP, moving the limit from 120 milligrams to 92, and we can easily work with the HVO granting the same performances. I am also showing two pictures resulting from our endurance test with this single stage burner running with the pure HVO and showing the situation of the combustion head, the blast tube and the diffuser disc after 3000 burn hour with an operating cycle of 2 minutes on and 2 minutes off. We can see that the combustion head is clean, no matter involving the nozzle, so not soot on the nozzle, in the diffuser disc and in the blast tube. Also the combustion chamber, not shown here, was really very clean. Next slide, please. Here is a similar, let me say, chart, but involving what we call a fully blue flame technology. This is very popular in countries like Germany. It's what we call a fully blue flame technology. In this case, also, HVO is offering a very clean combustion, very reliable combustion. This kind of technology are normally equipped with the infrared flame sensor, and there are no matter involving the flame detection. So here the flame through this technology is recognize really very well. Biocompatible material are important to be assured, and we can say that with this technology, no matter involving the movement from kerosene to HVO. Also here we can see some performances resulting from our endurance test. HVO 100%, this was a modulating burner, so an oil residential modulating burner, granting very clean combustion. In this case, we took the picture after 2000 burn hour. You can see that the combustion head is really very clean. The internal part where we have the nozzle and the air also nozzle is really very clean. The internal part of the blast tube and the recirculation pipe is not showing any evidence of very increasing deposit, and the combustion chamber of the appliances involved was also very clean. So we can know that the combustion of HVO is really very clean and soot-free. Important also to highlight an aspect. HVO is not only a burner topic. HVO is surely easier to manage than FAME. Even if HVO blends can easily work in existing appliances, it's always better to have an holistic approach, a system-level approach, and check tanks, filter, and other components. Another key point are people. The knowledge of people involved, the knowledge of installer and service engineers, together with a correct commissioning, is essential, is a key aspect for reliability and long-term operation with HVO. Here you can see some pictures taken from the training we are organizing from time to time in collaboration with our OEM partner. For us, the matter of technical knowledge is really very important. And then just to conclude, a very quick message. We confirm industry is ready. HVO can be a pragmatic way to reduce CO2 emissions, aligning with the European targets without major changes. For us, for Ariston, HVO fits well into a technological neutral approach to decarbonization, where renewable liquid fuels play an important role in the energy mix. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erika. This was really interesting. Let me turn now over to Martin Reichert, Managing Director at EVO, who will cover the Austrian perspective. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Federica. Very good afternoon from Austria. I'm glad to be with you. I would like to tell you something about the HVO field tests in Austria that we conducted already, a mix in Austria that we are facing. So at the very beginning, I would like to tell you that in HVO is at the moment not present in the domestic field, but it's mainly used in the mobility sector. But let's come to that later. Just a few words about EVO. We have our and commercial heating, but we decided to engage also in other fields for liquid fuels, and that means that our way is from backup power to freight transport and off-road to, at the end, all applications of renewable fossil liquid energies. Next slide, please. So at the moment, we are representing around 500,000 oil heating households in Austria. Towards policy, the advantages of liquid fuels, particularly renewable energy liquid fuels, in their significance in shaping the energy transition. So we follow the transition process from liquid fuel, fossil fuels to renewable liquid fuels. And our members are the Austrian energy traders, the Austrian mineral oil industry, chimney sweeps guild, the installers guild, and boiler manufacturers. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to tell you is our very successful energy HVO test project in Austria that was conducted between 2018 and 2022. Where we tried to see the results of the use of HVO in existing oil heating systems, residential as well as commercial. And we had there 7 boiler manufacturers that took part in this study, as well as 2 HVO producers, namely Eni and Neste. So we had 2 qualities. And the total scope were 13 heating systems in operation across Austria for the 4 years, as I already mentioned. Next slide, please. So the objective was the documentation of the emissions, the end of the flue gas loss, and the demonstration of climate-friendly cooperation of heating oil systems, as well as the verification of operational reliability. And the results were quite convincing. We had -10 more efficiency, minus 50% CO, and minus 90% CO2. So that was very promising and interesting. Next slide, please. We used these appliances also for marketing reasons. So here we have 2 households where they used this heating oil and who were very satisfied with the product. Next slide, please. We also conducted a survey among Austrian oil heating households some month ago. We had about 3,000 people who answered our questions, and although not yet in use in the heating oil sector, as I already mentioned, about 2/3 of the households answered that they have already heard something about HVO. Here, yes, 35% directly from us, but also from the energy supplier and also from mass media. Next slide, please. And the consumer were also asked whether they are interested in using renewable liquid fuels in their system, and half of them answered yes, within the next 5 years they hope that they can use it. 9% also said that they would use it immediately. Next slide, please. And we also asked of the price that they would be willing to pay, and half of the participants answered that they would be willing to pay up to 10% more than they pay for fossil heating oil, and also 10% would even pay up to 20% more. Next slide, please. Obstacles. Why don't we have it yet in the market? Well, there are mainly 3 obstacles, I would say. The first is the price, and the price consists not also on international quotations, where we can say that the price is too high and too volatile in comparison to the fossil heating oil or fossil fuels in any way. But furthermore, we have national specifications. For example, we have in Austria, we are facing a different treatment of the same product according to its use. So it is treated differently from a political side, whether it is used as mobility or in another area. And the reason for that is that in the mobility sector, the that demands a share of renewable. Otherwise, you have to pay a penalty, and therefore renewable liquid fuels are seen as a solution. Since the price is higher than fossil fuels, HVO is primarily used as a blend or as a means for companies to present their green image. Next slide, please. Second obstacle is availability. As I already said, it is treated differently according to its use. And at the moment, only very limited quantities are in use for heating. And so our target is to secure the acceptability of renewable energies, renewable liquid energy, so mainly of HVO in residential heating, hotels, and process heating, and all other sectors apart from mobility. And the third obstacle is regulation, policy barriers, and bureaucracy. We have to, or any trader who wants to use HVO as renewable must present its renewable origin to the authorities and insert that in this certificate into a public file. All quantities not used for mobilities are therefore not seen as renewables. And due to one single fraud case in Germany, we have very strict handling and lots of controls through the Austrian authorities, and they need up to 6 months for final approval. So we now expect for this year about 80% less quantities of HVO in Austria than in the previous year. So we can see that there is a high influence from political side on how the product is distributed. So my conclusions is there is a theoretically high and due to political requirements ever increasing demand for HVO, but we have political or bureaucratic burdens for its distribution. We also see a competition among nations because some international companies are not very eager to send the product, let's say, or to sell the products to Austria, since it is easier to sell it in other countries. We see also high price differentials among nations, so HVO, the price of HVO, and quality is key, is also very important conclusion. Authorities are very much interested in where the product is coming from, and it must be really proven that there is a renewable origin, otherwise we get difficulties for its use. So quality is key. These are my conclusions and my presentation. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. Let me turn over to our last speaker, not for importance, for today's session, and it's Arto Hanula, Executive Director at LEI, Finnish Heating Energy Association. Arto, building on the Austrian example, could you give us a perspective from Finland? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Federica. And let's take a short overview of renewable heating dynamics in Finland. This is the paragraph where you can see that on the beginning of 2000, we had approximately 250,000 domestic houses where they have oil heating systems, more or less detached houses. And the CO2 emission on that time was approximately 1,800,000 tons per year. And nowadays we are in that kind of situation that we'll have approximately 100,000 oil heating detached houses in Finland, and at the same time the CO2 emissions have been dropped to 350,000 tons per year. So it's a quite huge change in a reduction in CO2 emissions. And partly this is the reason that there's less oil heating houses, but also that there's a lot of these 100,000 detached houses have the hybrid systems exist, and some of them are also using this HVO, which is available in Finland. Shall we take the next one? So we get this, or Neste established this HVO technology in road transport in 2017, 2020, and we get that the year 2021 in heating sector. And it's on the end of the 21, it was available in whole country, so that from Lapland to south. So it's already available and possible to use. On 2024, another refinery company, ST1, entered on the market and breaking the Neste monopoly, and we get some kind of competition on the market. On the current state, both companies are selling this HVO for the heating sector also, and it's available in the whole country. So it's possible to use it, and it's accepted to use. And as well as the user side, it's zero emission, but the life cycle calculations, it's 90% less CO2 emission. So it's a good choice for this kind of systems. Technically, those products are almost the same. It's no big difference. It's made only some very cold weathers. It could be some small differences. Let's go to the next one. And what are the demand drivers and market dynamics in this? Like Teemu already told, that the regulatory pressure is one of thing what is doing this main target or main point of the use for the HVO, but then there is let's say that kind of targets on the moment is for the traffic, it's 19.5% renewable have to be on to the transportation, and next year 27 it should be 22.5%. And for the heating market, target is 2030 30%. It should be a renewable products. Good point for this is that it can be used in public and private and different kind of construction sites, which is quite a lot of used on the moment. Especially these when they building the buildings, and on the winter time they need the heating for there, and they rent out the heating systems for these construction sites, and they using the HVO in there. That is one of the big user. Also, the good thing is that it's not need that kind of big investments. It's more or less drop-in solution, so it's easy to start using about the HVO. And price is one point, but it's a new product. It's like it was just telling about that it's very good and clean how it burns, but it's cost about 20 to 40 cents more per liter on the moment for the heating system point. Yes, please. And who are the users of renewable in Finland on the moment? Especially those companies who have to calculate this or calculating about these emissions, and accounting it's important for them. They're mainly on transportation companies, or also the industrial properties where they are using these. There's some smaller district heating plants which are using HVO, and then it's mainly used also the backup power plants. In detached houses, it's more or less question about the private individuals who already have the oil heating systems and they want to reduce the emissions, and then they are ready to pay a little bit more about this heating oil. And especially in those cases where they have the hybrid heating systems in the building, because it gives you the possibility to reduce these CO2 emissions, and the cost is not so much more, because average consumption of oil is normally about 2,200 liters per year. And if you have the hybrid systems and there's HVO in the use, it means that you need this oil approximately 200 to 500 liters per year. So the price difference is not so much. And in this, go back a little bit. Yes, this paragraph, you saw these yearly emission and operating expenses. It's mean you can see that, of course, it depends on the electricity price and oil price, which is varies all the time. But in generally, you can see these green and gray and blue lines. They are almost as equal. There's not a big difference in the hybrid systems. If you are using the HVO and air-to-water heat pumps, and if you're using the air-to-water heat pump together with the electricity, it's the price is almost the same, but the CO2 emissions are higher if you change that whole system from to electricity based. And but it's a different calculation method and different way how they think about this the emissions, and but we can show that it's even better that if you use the air-to-water heat pump together with the HVO, so less emission and almost the same price level for the year heating cost. Next, please. What does it looks in the future? And there's a growth potential quite a lot for the HVO in heating point. It's also good for the farmers, for example, because they can use it off-road machines like harvesters, tractors, and sort of things, and as well as the heating at the same time. Same HVO is working for all of these applications. What are the challenges? Okay, like Teemu just told in the beginning, that global feedstock is not the problem. It's not a big deal yet, at least. Fuel price is maybe the one of the point that why the people are not so willing about use it as much as they get good to do it. And then we have this distribution obligation, and if the politicians make a lot of changes for that, so that they don't keep this plan as they have been planned, so that's maybe one bad point, that is there a market or not, because the regulation is the main thing, that it have to be there as long as the price level is different, or a little bit higher. But one point is that HVO is a critical transition fuel. It delivers immediate emission reduction without the equipment modification. That is one main point, that if we want to be CO2 zero emissions on the 2035, this have to be one of the solutions. And I think that was all what I had to say in the Finnish market at the moment.
Thank you, Arto. Brilliant. And thank you to all our speakers for the excellent presentation. And we can say that we have heard a lot today about HVO in heating from both technical and market perspectives. And with that in mind, I'd like to hand over to Moritz for a short closing reflection, please.
So, interesting meeting, and I try to summarize a few ideas I picked already up. From Temu, I learned that Neste is now active in several countries in refining waste and residues into renewable products. And the market is growing, and the driving force is mostly regulation. But invest in these technologies needs a trust in the market. So it needs a business case, a long-term strategy, and a clear and reliable regulation for future. Erika pointed out that still 20 million homes are heated with liquid fuels in Europe, and Ariston tested several fuels and fuel mixes. HVO is similar to fossil heating oil, but before you make a switch, you should check a few things like the flame sensor, because HVO burns so nicely, so clear without any soot, that the flame has nearly no color. And she also said that the industry, the boiler industry, is following the EU targets, which mean reducing emissions and becoming more and more CO2 neutral. From Martin, we learned that in Austria, they carried out several HVO tests from 2018 to 22, with 7 boiler manufacturers included and 2 HVO producers. And the results were convincing. A survey did show interest in the market. People or house owners are willing to use these renewable products. And a goal for the organization EVO in the future is increasing the acceptance of HVO in the heating market comparable to the mobility sector. Last but not least, from Arto we learned that CO2 emissions in Finland dropped drastically in the last years. Neste launched 21 100% heating oil, HVO based in Finland, and this is available in the whole country. And this is, I think, quite nice to know. The driving force is the regulation, and the arguments are often the idea that you don't need an additional invest. You can buy this product and use your old appliance and getting CO2 neutral, or you will get a drastic reduction without doing anything in addition. At last, he also pointed out that HVO may play an important role in the security of supply idea. And I think this is a perfect end of the beginning question. What do we do with today's situation? From my side, I would like to thank you all for that you participated today. I also would like to thank Federica and Sabrina for the organization and all speakers who had a part in today's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moritz, for the wrap-up. So actually, we can now open the floor to your questions. If any, please type your questions in the comment box, and I will read them out, to the panel. But maybe let me start with one general question for the panel. This can be maybe for Martin or Arto. I don't know, in one sentence, what is the single most important action needed in the next 2-3 years to scale up HVO in heating?
Okay, I can answer first. It's maybe one of the most important thing is that this like Teemu tells earlier that this politician targets have to be clear to 2050, not just the 2030, because it's important, because these investments, what they have to make, for example, to produce these HVO is those are the huge investments, and they need to know that how far this go on. And if they have the target, for example, in Finland, that it should be 2030, 30% HVO on the heating sector. So what after that? If that's stay on that level or get it higher or whatever. So it's important. One main thing is that it have to be, how you say, sure that it will be happened. It will be the one of the main point.
And may I add, I think politicians should be very glad that we are now working and we are offering a product that is no longer for sale and should not give them any obstacles to the traders or in providing certificates that you can guarantee that it is a renewable origin. I think we are doing we have quite a lot of work in providing these guarantees and these certificates. But if that is really the case, the first thing that we should think about, or politicians should think about, but if we have to provide these certificates, then we have to do that as well, also in the heating oil sector. Then we can promote the product also in heating.
Thank you. Teemu, Moritz, would you like to add anything else?
I would say that pretty much right on spot, that we have to have regulation driving this, pushing this, but we have to get rid of regulation that is blocking this also. So there is also conflict in regulation, that we have something that is pushing and supporting, but the fact is that there is a lot of details in the regulation that is more or less aimed rather directly against this kind of solution. So we should be really open-minded and look as a whole regulatory framework to really support the progress on this side.
Thank you. I don't see any questions in the comment box, so it looks like we are coming to an end of our webinar. Thank you very much to all our speakers for sharing their insights on HVO deployment in Austria and Finland, as well as the industry experience on the ground, which is really important and practical. Thank you to all participants for joining us today. The recording, as was asked before, and will be available for playback. So thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to continuing these discussions in the months ahead.